Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fans from all around the world and those closer to home, it is my pleasure to welcome you here to the final act of the Canadian Ultimate Championships Division 1 Open. The final. Queens, two-time winners in 2015, 2016, fell in the semi-finals last year against Toronto. Taking on McGill, a team who just had a huge win in the semi-final. Interrupting the action and assaulting your ear lobes. Today, I am Lorcan Murray and I am joined by the fantastic, the indefatigable Rebecca Thompson. For a moment, I think we must all understand what lies in front of us in this epic encounter as the first pull goes up, and it will be a brick. As Julius Caesar said when crossing the Rubicon, the die has been cast, as now we look to crown a champion for this Canadian Ultimate season. Too good. Purple pants, as always, emblazoned on the field. Gets to work against the McGill zone. Looks for the dump. Gets an easy one straight away and receives it back immediately. Nice active play. Just taking their time, and there almost immediately is a melt call. 2-3 passes completed. Mackenzie with the disc sends it down the line. Huge layout bid and screaming through. That's Tremblay Yoncas.
Tremblay Jonca there. Huge layout D. That player, so much explosiveness in his capabilities.
So that's Angus Boswell. Sends it down the line. Unfortunately, that is bounced and out of the hands of the intended receiver, Kadota. No call. So it's a quick fire, 2 turns to start off this game. As Too Good goes back to work, trying to lead his Queen side. Goes to the break side as they so frequently do. Always looking for those options. Michaud has Too Good again, gives it to him. And spreading it wonderfully, but what an incredible layout D! That was Adam Gosselin. Although it appears that's going to have to go back as Mackenzie has taken a bit of a knock.
Mackenzie there, a lot of contact sustained through that bid. A phenomenal bid by Gosselin there, but there was some contact. Not sure if there's actually a call on this play, but Mike Mackenzie definitely taking a knock. That would be a big loss for this Queen side, so hopefully he is all right.
He is one of the linchpins of their offense. They've worked very hard at raising up some of the younger elements of their squad, really trying to develop. I know that's always been a huge goal of Peter Galbraith. Anybody who's seen his work with the under-24 Canadian sides can attest to that as well. A rising tide, trying to lift Queens back into the throne that they occupied for 2 straight years. But still, Mackenzie is one of the guiding lights.
So it looks like just explaining the movement here. I think Mackenzie feels like Gosselin came into his own space there. I see him describing the catch and the movement with his hands. Still the first point of this game, a longer discussion for this first one here. Observer Glenn Ford now coming in. So the observer has ruled that it was a foul. So the disc will go into the hands of Mackenzie.
And we look to resume. Huge defensive effort by Gosselin. Mackenzie wearing a hood, protecting himself from the sun. Important. Looks to protect possession as well. Swings it around. Queens not looking too forced. Happy to take their time. They've been working on their match defense. As you can see, McGill encroaching ever closer, and every time Mackenzie lashes it to the end zone for the comfortable collection, and it's a fantastic score by Eric Zhu.
None other than Zhu with that goal as well. We saw his speed in the game we had them against Manitoba yesterday. He racked up points in the quarters and the semis as well, so not surprised. Mackenzie locking eye contact all the way to the end zone, and Queens a nice opening first point of the championship game.
Great to see them settle themselves down after giving the disc up. Got a little bit lucky with the drop as well. But on the second time of asking, recycling the disc, taking the shots when they become available, and Eric Zhu has a habit of making those shots available. Former track and field star at the national level. Somehow Queens were able to coax him over to their ultimate program, leaving behind the track for the turf. So Queens score the opening blow. An offensive hold.
So these two teams did face off against each other yesterday in pool play as well, with Queens taking that one 15-9. So a pretty confident victory there. Spoke to one of the McGill captains, Timmy Wu, and he felt like they didn't play their best game. They had a good first half and they slipped off in the second. So we'll have to see if they can sustain their level and find a response right away here.
So we wait and we get things started. That's Colbury, one of the Texan rookies on this McGill side. That's a long trip for University, but I'm sure they're glad they did it. McAleer gives it back to Colbury. McAleer, number 4, standing in the middle of that zone. He will be in the middle of the offense all game long for McGill as that one arcs its way around to Stone, the other rookie from Texas. So that's 2 Texans flanking McAleer. Let's see if Queens are able to mess with them. As right now, they're taking their time, poking and prodding at that Queen zone. Yesterday, they were able to make Queens readjust, going away from their primary zone to their secondary one. So they have the patience. They have the track record. Stone pops it back. And McGill more than happy to take their time. That's a big arcing one, even in the wind. Colbury able to get it. Has to stay strong and confident with the encroaching defensive pressure. Just about able to get that one to McAleer. And you have to feel the Queens are starting to tighten the screws. And this will be revelatory in terms of the composure the McGill are possessing in this final. There's a huge shot deep. You want to talk about composure? How about we talk about some action? Huge grab. That is an impressive defensive presence. James McLean cleaning up that one. As now we start to see the move in the opposite direction. Here's a huge hook. Robinson completely alone downfield. Takes his time but can't quite get there. It was dropping with each second.
Looked like Robinson there thought he had more time than he did as that disc dropped to the ground.
So, in a repeat of the opening point, we've had a turn each. Let's see if McGill can match Queens and punch it in on the second time of asking. Now they're starting to look really fluid out there. You can see Caitlin Lovat's influence coming through. Stone sends that one around. Gets it down the field. Tremblay, Yona. Back to Stone. Not quite happy with what he sees in the form of Hooley, instead going to Colbury, his countryman. And back to Stone. These 2 young players feeling very comfortable at the head of this offensive line. Both out of Austin. And he goes to the easy dump and gets it back immediately. Out to the opposite sideline. The break is available, but only just and right. Instead goes back to Stone in the middle. And that's what their coach wants to see. They're not trying to force anything. They're taking their time. Throwing through the contact. But that time a little bit rushed as Hooley just puts it past Stone.
Another miscued effort here where it looked like the receiver also thought they had it in their possession as it went to hit the ground. So now Queens with another look at the break. They're going to be trying to get it. That's Wheatley. The forefront of this D-line offense. They've really been working on getting their system into the D-line offense. That is an incredibly impressive hand block. Excellent stuff by Wright. And there's the pass to the end zone, taken in comfortably by Tremblay Yonka. Tremblay Jonka there.
Tremblay Jonka.
With the goal, emphatic, big up floating disc in the air. It was popping up all the way as well. And Jonka does such a great job to elevate and come down. Mick Allier there, his teammate from Team Canada U24 mixed as well, hitting him on the break side shot. So much chemistry, those two working very well together and immediately finding a response to tie it up at once.
So, both teams come out on offense, turn it over, get it back. and punch it in. 1-1. Tentative. It's taken us almost 10 minutes to arrive at this point without it being elongated too much by calls. So I imagine both outfits right now just trying to settle down. McGill showing a lot of patience.
So Caitlin Lovat, coach of McGill, the head coach for Team Canada Women's U24 as well in Australia this year, spoke about how their team at the start of the season thought that they would be a team who liked to huck it, go for those big plays throughout the year, but they have turned into a team that is happy to work the unders, grind it out, and in result of that become very resilient on these long points as well.
And that is crucial. Resiliency. You're at the end of the tournament. Last game. What are you taking home with you? How does it shine in the evening sun? As Queens, nice, flowing, patient offense with Too Good at its center. Michaud thinks about the scuba, teases me. Huge fan of a sneaky overhead every now and again, and the wind would facilitate it as it blows from the right to the left across the pitch, from one end zone to the other. Nice high release backhand, just about able to get away with it. Sends it down the line. That's Lewis on the near sideline, back to Too Good. Back to Lewis, excellent use of the quick backwards and forwards. And there's Lewis, wasting no more time, sending it deep, but it's a bit of a battle, and it's one that Ferries wins. That's another rookie for this McGill side.
Jordan Ferries, one of those names that you say is a rookie based on the nature that he's a freshman, but a lot of experience and talent, played so many years, or young player, but played at a high level of club already, competed, I believe, for the Montreal Royal. So a lot of experience for such a young player and showing his athleticism right off the bat.
So McGill, again, they earn an impressive turn thanks to their defensive efforts in physical match D. So there's a big hook, not really with a lot of options. Oh, and leaving it go, thinking the sideline was where it was, and it wasn't. We've seen that mistake before a few times, and there's the timeout. That has got to be frustrating for Hunter Juhas. Juhas
there, clearly frustrated after that. Thought the disc had sailed out of bounds. Even did a shoulder check to see where Ferries was behind him. Ferries continued his cut, sliding onto the ground. Observers ruling him inbounds there, and a great decision to call the timeout early in this game, but had nobody with him upfield either.
Very smart using that presence of mind, but that's something that we saw McGill do so expertly against Guelph in that semi-final. A gripping matchup between a team I think a lot of people expected to see in the final. I don't think you're out of line to describe McGill's win there as unexpected, or at least as a bit of an underdog success story.
In some ways, absolutely. They weren't expected on paper to take that victory, although this McGill team have been building this program for so many years now. They've got phenomenal coaches, great captains, and a very prideful group of players as they describe themselves. And I think showing that here, a little bit of resilience, obviously willing to go out and fight for every point, and that carrying them through that game against a pretty fiery Guelph team.
Just to talk a little bit about Peter Galbraith, the coach. He does focus on that ethos, staying positive, everyone working together, trying to get the rookies or the less experienced players who tend to make up this D-line to play to the higher level and then bring them onto the O-line. Huge effort as they do not want to give up a break. Gosselin has a dump. McAleer can't get it all the way around to the break. He sees a bit of movement in front of him, able to get it down the line. Kadota.
I like the way that Thomas McAleer here is really controlling this handler space. He's directing traffic. You can see him pointing, telling where his teammates to go.
As now he tries to get free. Can't quite manage it. Boswell, unable to bring that one in.
Kadota just shooting that too far away from him, and an unfortunate miscommunication in the red zone.
So now, Too Good gets another look. Waits for it. Looked like McAleer was going to be able to steal in, but McLeish seems to have tackled that one rather severely. while catching it.
Yeah, McKenzie just tacoing the disc a little bit as he landed on it. McAleer is putting on so much defensive pressure there as well. So McKenzie doing a good job to catch that through the contact.
See Zhu in the open side in front of him. So difficult to contain. McKenzie down the line. Too good back. And Zhu just able to get it off. Too good, just keeps moving left and right. Eventually able to get it to Michaud, who goes for a huge ping to the end zone. Too fast even for the zippy Zhu to collect.
And that disc, so much pace on it too, was moving at such a speed that only a player like Zhu could catch up to. So close on that effort, a great bid.
So now Craggle, front of his own end zone, and trying to help his team get a break. Beautifully weighted backhand. Made it look a lot easier than that throw is to pull off. And a very easy throw to mix up as Cadota gets that to Gosselin, but has to come back. Seems to be a pick through the stack.
And the wind also really picking up at our backs right now, directly across the field.
Gosselin decides against the open two in front of him. McAleer slightly less free. Seems McKenzie just went into his back.
You can see Coach Pete Galbraith there for Queens just losing his game sheets across the field there. Had to go pick him up.
So, a little bit of discussion.
I think just resetting where the players were and deciding, it looks like, deciding where the stall count will come back in. Very physical battle here between McAleer and McKenzie.
McAleer just tries to get out of the space straight away. Gosselin, stall count getting ever higher, and he was always under pressure. Couldn't get it to Craggle. So you'd have to fancy Too Good to set up an isolation at the front of the stack, probably with McKenzie. Certainly seems how it is. And a nice dump and swing involving Michaud just for good measure.
Fantastic job there by Queens to recognize that they needed to hit that dump in order to get it over to the break side as well. You see a lot of teams try to force it through that narrow gap, especially since McKenzie was so wide open on that cut too. But this time, taking the second to make the extra pass and then punching it into McKenzie in the end zone, making it look pretty simple and very disciplined as well in the red zone.
Excellent stuff right in front of the end zone. And we saw that yesterday as well. They've got some fantastic end zone sets set up for those kind of turnovers, how they can be guaranteed to at least get a good high percentage look.
And they're a team that transitions so quickly as well, always looking up. They make a split-second decision about whether to pick that disc up quickly and immediately go for the first cut. And on this one, making the very smart decision to take a second, set it up, and then execute perfectly.
So, Queens able to get the hold, not without effort. It has to be noted. It's been a turnover, at least 2 on every point we've had so far. Colbury, Stone. Swings it all the way around, waiting for it right. Stone tries to make himself available, crashing through the cup and then going back for the drop. And a beautiful pass all the way down the sideline, expertly done. Tremblay-Jonca sends that one down the sideline again himself. Lee waiting for it. The melt happens and they switch to match defense. And an immediate out call, misunderstanding where the sidelines are is right. Tried to get the easy pass. So a bit of a gift for Queens. It does seem to be a matter of McGill really have to earn their turns, whereas they seem to be just giving them to Queens. And as soon as I say that, Queens say, well, allow us to respond with generosity as well.
McLean there getting a little bit too excited, I think, winding up, and he was trying to go for that break backhand. The pressure on the mark didn't give him the angle to let off the throw that he wanted to do. So I think McGill really aware that those hucks will come up for Queens if they give them too much space to do so.
And again, the coaching, the tactical preparation coming to the fore. Hooley tries to get free inside the wing. Somehow Lee's able to steal that one away. I thought it was destined for a D by the hands of Robinson. And Stone using that lengthy figure to try and get around the mark. I'm a huge fan of Cabral, how he plays defense in that position. A violation call, so that Scuba may have to go back. I hope it doesn't, as earlier stated. Huge fan of Scubers.
Yeah, on that one, Hayden Stone there was trying to just start the play very quickly, did tap it in, and it looks like they've agreed now that Cabral did recognize it, and so it has continued upfield.
So it will stay in the hands of Hooley. But not for very long as he gets it off as quick as he can. And it's popped back, Stone. And once again goes back to Joncas. Fakes the high release flick. Goes to the nice swing instead. Coolbury gets hand blocked emphatically, although that one's going to come back for a bit of a foul call.
We talked about this a little bit yesterday. When you watch the motion of the disc after its release after a foul call, how clean it is versus how much it bobbles. That one bobbled pretty hard to the ground, so can't tell 100% from our angle. We are behind where the call was made, but looks like the right resolution here.
Coolbury immediately looks dump. Gets it to Joncas somehow, even though he was always the intended target, and he just throws it nicely into Hooley for the score.
Tremblay Joncas, so much speed. Doesn't take him very much to get open. He took one hard step and then committed to his cut up line. Tight window, but no problem for this team who knows the ability of their cutters and receivers.
In fairness to Tremblay Joncas, one of his normal steps is like 2 normal people steps. Like, that's a lot of distance to be able to pretend to go in.
Queens is going to have to find something to answer to the types of cuts that he's putting out. My favorite thing watching the way he plays, when he's getting that swing pass to him, he was making sure he shoulder checked before he makes the catch. He's always aware of who's behind him and what his next pass is. It's an incredible ability of any high-level player to do that.
And we've seen a few people try to do that kind of thing, get carried away and just drop the disc. So, even though it's early days in the game, we don't want to jinx him. He does seem to separate himself from the pack by his ability to multitask effectively.
And staying on, I think, for his 3rd point in a row here as well, switching off between offense and defense, but sure to see an epic pull here as well from him. And I'm going to bite my words right away, although...
That one might curve back, you never know. Nope, it just curved further away.
I think usually his problem there, usually does a little bit of a spin on his run-up, didn't do it this time, so I'm going to blame it on that one.
I think he's probably been spending too long in the gym. That's frequently the conclusion we draw in Europe when somebody pulls it out of bounds. So, Too Good in power position. Trying to work against this McGill zone. Something that separates the McGill zone from a lot of the other zones we've seen is how far back it sits. As Queens doing an excellent job of spreading it apart and trying to attack the space immediately behind the front people, and they melt straight away. Seems to be a throw initiated, so once a certain number of throws get completed, they just melt. McKenzie. Marked by Swan. As the Queens respond appropriately to the melt call and switch to a 2-5. Zoo clears out in a fantastic break, but it bounces out of the hands of James Lewis. So, Craggle, near sideline, looking for someone to get free in the open channel. Eventually Boswell does. Boswell really getting a bit physical in his pursuit of the disc. But you have to be in those tight quarters. Thinks about just floating that one around, trying to get it to Joncas. Sides against it. Now he has to because the stall gets too high. Lots of floating and athletic bid by Jordan Ferries. But he wasn't able to get that one. Sorry, forgive me for misnaming number 11, currently on the force. That is Jack Eagles, borrowing someone else's jersey for this game.
That one is not on you. That'll be on Coach Nicholas Swan, who lent his jersey to one of his players in this case.
Damn you, Nicholas. As Too Good immediately moves him. Not all the way. And is forced to go back to Mackenzie in his own end zone. Still looking. Michaud misreads with Zoo and allowing Joncas to just come in and get the disc. Tremblay Joncas now right in the middle of the end zone, floats a comfortable one out, although that one's going to come back for a pick. Understandably, Ferries rather free. Bear in mind, this is McGill knocking on the door of the opening break. They started the half on defense. Tremblay Joncas goes for the break, decides against it. Excellent forcing by Too Good. His foot was always in the way. Boswell somehow gets that one off, and it is taken in by Ferries.
Jordan Ferries absolutely dominating to get to that one. Huge play, elevated in the air. Looked like he floated for about a couple seconds there, and then coming down with it under incredible pressure, keeping his feet in the end zone. And a shakier throw there from Boswell to the break side, catching the wind a little bit. But when you have a cutter like Jordan Ferries, why not put that towards him?
I think it's fair to say that he does believe in Ferries, and why wouldn't you when he's got those kinds of receiving plays in his locker?
How long have you been waiting to use that one?
20 minutes.
McGill looking pretty energized, I'd say, right now as well, Lorcan. They've really started to build some momentum through these points. Close, obviously, early in this game still, although it's already been about 26 minutes here. So taking a fair amount of time to play the first 5 points of this one, but I'd say McGill just looking very pumped up and confident after every point.
It's taking on average 5 minutes to play every point, 10 minutes to get the first 2. So it's been a slow pace to the game so far, but one that McGill, I'm sure, are quite okay with right now as they take the lead 3-2. Their offensive consistency in the semi-final saw them past Guelph. A late run by Guelph threatened them momentarily, but they were able to correct themselves. As now we see Queens going to work. McLean gives it to Mackenzie. Mackenzie tries to send that one down the line. Robinson stays strong despite the incoming physical pressure of Hess Childs. Makes the grab. And then it slips out of his hand as he tries to get it back to Too Good. That's just an unfortunate error. McAleer gets it going almost immediately. Ferries staying on the line, and that one's going to be high. Bounces out of the hands of Hess Childs.
Hess Childs did well to come into it as there was defensive pressure. I think he had to try to make that play on the disc. Getting up pretty high, but just a little bit too far out of his reach.
So now Too Good marching to the front end zone line. Trying to move the cup with an immediate backhand fake. Not too successful. Back into Mackenzie. Back to McLean. Too Good. And they spread it out to the other side of the pitch. Robinson is doing excellent work down in the mid position. Lewis back in the middle to Too Good. McLean. And Robinson again, even with the melt, able to show up where he's needed. Mackenzie, marked tightly by Ferries. Just a little discussion there about the contact. Really have to commend both teams. They're playing a hard physical game, but they're doing it fairly, with respect.
You can tell in the way their body language is on those discussions that there is a lot of respect going on between the two teams.
Too Good. Swings it all the way around to Mackenzie again. Thinks about getting the inside. Instead just dishes it to Robinson. And one more time to McLean. McLean, Mackenzie have been so influential on this point. Tom Griffin. on the mark. McLean can't get it to Mackenzie. Instead, he has to go back. Waiting there for it. Lewis. He gets it to Mackenzie. Excellent defense on that front corner by McGill for the most part, but who else but Robinson? Every time they looked in trouble, that man got open. 3-3.
Robinson, also a dynamic player here for Queens and a phenomenal leader as well, helping carry this Queens team into another final after a year hiatus. Of course, missing the podium completely last year in 4th place.
And that was due to Toronto. The team also beat them in Steeltown, I believe in the quarterfinals earlier this season.
Yeah, that did happen. And Toronto, an interesting question mark to this weekend's tournament as well. The #1 seed, unfortunately, so far losing every single game that they have played. So slipping completely off the map, not the team we expected to see this weekend. But at the same time, not surprised to see Queens returning back to the championship game. And McGill, the way they played in that semi-final game, their quarterfinal was a tough one against Waterloo too, only a couple-point victory there, and now ready to grind out another one. This one, these two teams so far early on look pretty evenly matched to me.
Very much so. I feel like the incredibly close games McGill had, they scored a break just before the buzzer went to win thanks to the hard cap against Waterloo, like you were saying. Against Guelph, they were incredibly impressive all game long. At the start of the second half, pulled away a little bit, lost some of that lead, but again were able to hold on. I feel like the catharsis that Queens would have went through beating Toronto 15-2 this morning in the quarterfinal, even if there's a bit of a question mark about the power of Toronto coming into this tournament, that is a huge moment for them, rectifying their loss in the semi-final from last year. And then they look so good in the semi-final earlier on as well against Manitoba, repeating their victory from them, the live stream yesterday. So both teams definitely firing on all cylinders as they come into this. Stone, calm as A, gives it back to Cobre. And Stone again. And this is nice patience, not trying to force anything. Right, back to Stone. Into right, nice positioning. And McGill happy to sit 3 people back to try and occupy the wings and deep, and trusting their 4 handlers to just swing through the middle again. Excellent move by Colbury. Tembury Jonkas gets out again. Colbury working with Eagles, and Eagles threads that one all the way through. Hooley tries to get it to Tembury Jonkas. Excellent help defense, but the throw never really seemed right.
I got to agree with you there. I think the decision was the right one. I think Tembury Jonkas had space cutting to this near sideline, but that throw had to be perfect, leading in front of him to the corner of the end zone.
So, Too Good with a chance to get his team back on serve. As Queens spread that one just about taken in. McLean. He has Robinson. Robinson normally on the D-line. It was interesting to see him moved onto the O-line for the previous point for Queens. As McLean gets it back. Mackenzie. And he's got a huge deep shot available to him. Ferries is going to have to go up against Too Good. And he knows how strong Too Good is as a receiver. He had to try and take it at its maximum, falling ever so slightly short. So that's a big break for Queens as they retake the lead, 4-3.
Like you said, Ferries had to go up early for that one. Maybe a second too early, but he got up so high as well. Put on a good effort, but Too Good just read it a little bit better and waited for it to sit into his hands. A break here for Queens, 4-3. This game could be anyone's at this point. I like that huck and that play, though, sending your classic handler, your main handler in Too Good to the deep space.
Excellent running from Too Good as well. As you will remember, he was the closest Queens defender to the huck that went up in the other direction. So, a timeout called, understandably so. McGill worked so hard to gain that advantage and then to lose it almost immediately. Excellent composure by Queens, and I suppose this speaks to how close these teams are to each other. Like you were talking about, Becky, there is not much to separate them. Queens were definitely a favourite coming into this, but McGill have proven themselves baptized in fire.
I mean, I'm at a loss for words a little bit on how interesting this game is starting to unfold for me as well. Both these teams clearly want this very badly, and 4-3, you want to see this stay close throughout the course of a game. Both these teams obviously earning their spot in this championship game in different ways. Queens arguably had the easier run to the final, and that can play off in different ways as well. Either they are just ready, they're the best team here, they're clinical, and they're going to come out and execute. On the other hand, McGill, having been tested almost a little bit more, they're ready to grind out another hard game, and that could be an interesting factor as this one continues. We'll see how it pays off for these two sides.
Strength breeds strength, and it takes a certain kind of whetstone to get the sharpest edge on a sword, and that is definitely how McGill look right now. They've shown that they can break Queens. They've shown that they can score on them. It really does feel like it's a pick'em right now.
See what can change so quickly here. We have yet to see a 2-point lead in this game. That could be a shift if Queens can come out and get a break right away. It'll be interesting to see how this one progresses.
I'm also interested to see how many points Mackenzie plays. He's taken maybe one off, as well as Robinson, who normally just plays D-line but was brought over to the O after their break, helping them secure it, and was integral in helping them secure it.
And on the other hand, you've got the likes of Tremblay-Jonca and McAllier, who have neither of them. I think McAllier one sub. I'm not sure about Jonca, so will be interesting.
Excellent grab by Stone as the defensive pressure came screaming towards him, but he stood tall and took it down against his opposite number. Kind of getting Colbury out of jail as the swings keep coming. And I like the malleability of this Queen zone. Expanding, but just as it contracts, they get it over the top. Brilliant zone offense. Doing Levat proud on the sideline. Colbury sends it all the way around to Stone. Can't get the break to McAleer. Excellent defensive coverage by Tang to deny that one. So you see Wright back in the middle. Tremblay-Joncas has Stone behind him, feeds him. Stone decides against Hooley to the open side and goes to McAleer to the break. That's how confident he is in his throwing. McAleer, bit of a touch, but not enough as they get it to Wheatley anyway for the score. Or Wright, sorry.
Fantastic defensive play there as well from the Queens defense. So much pressure. Getting it into the hands of Wright, but a full layout bid on defense right beside him. And doing a good job to stay calm, keep his hands on the disc, and McGill answering right away. A clean offensive hold, no turnovers on this point. We've seen turnovers, I think, on every other point so far. So good to see them come out here and be able to execute this one.
Executing it almost through sheer power of will. Layout bid, layout force, gets a touch, but still able to get it in. Pure determination. 4-4. Everything to play for. And a worldwide audience on tenterhooks. Remember, you can reach out to us if you want any shout-outs. Which way you think this game will go, I can't tell. Becky, can you tell?
At this point, it's dead even, in my opinion. These two teams are seeming to find the answers to each other with their match defense, finding those one-on-one combinations that are going toe-to-toe together. We'll see how it turns out. I won't be surprised to see some interesting ones here. Would love to see Tremblay-Jonca come down on Mackenzie as well and see how they can duke it out together. That
would be a fun matchup. I'd like to see Jonca maybe taking on McLean. Not on the pitch right now as Too Good picks up the disc.
And interestingly, a different zone look here. I think probably the transition that we've seen before, as just there, they are melting into a person. Not quite, actually. Not quite. I'll take my words back. They are playing a very junky style of zone right now.
And they're just going to try and run Gosselin into the ground. I do think it's about a 5 pass before they melt. On a huge layout bid, although that one's going to be called back. Fairies taking flight. But feeling like there was a little bit of contact.
What impresses me the most about that one was how early Fairies left for that bid. He anticipated that it was going to be coming into that space to Juhaz, and he left early. You see a lot of layout bids leaving a bit late, which can often cause the contact. and also you're going to miss the disc, and then you're off place on the mark when you're trying to get back up. So impressive ability here by Fairies. Juhaz thinking there was a call, but no foul, a clean play, and what an incredible defensive bid by Jordan Fairies.
And that's that determination we were talking about. It isn't limited to 1 or 2 players on this McGill side. It's every single one of them. As we see the hunger there. Tombre Joncas keeps it going to the break side. Waiting for it was Griffin. Another American, if you couldn't tell from his Afghan. He comes from Northwestern University. Now playing at McGill. So, Joncas has to stop again as there was another collision downfield. Gosselin. I find it peculiar that McGill have allowed 2 of their players to have the same number. Sometimes it's somebody sharing jerseys, but it's 2 players having the same number. They both have their names on them.
They are the same jerseys they had last year, so it is possible one of them did not order a new one, but still something that you want to see those people communicate about, especially to help us out, and the observers who also need to know who they are on the field.
So, Gosselin, the hatless number 50.
There's a travel called on the far sideline. Gosselin shifts a couple shuffles back to the left.
And in it comes, knocking on heaven's door, looking for that break. No answer as of yet. Tombre Joncas lashes it to the end zone. Too Good tries to scream in and does just enough to dissuade Griffin from scoring.
Griffin got a hand to it, but can't keep it in his control with the pressure, like you said, from Too Good.
Too Good beautifully spreads that one wide. Queens think about the deep shot instead, take the under. Michaud thinks about it himself as well. Nothing becoming immediately available, says no to Zoo. Too Good plants his shoulder and goes in the opposite direction. And again, gently to Mackenzie.
So a pick was called, but just acknowledging that it didn't affect the throw. So it will stay with Mackenzie. Jean-Kai will need to catch up. Here's the matchup we wanted to see.
And if you just look downfield, you can see Boswell with the unenviable task of trying to contain Zoo in the end zone. Although there's a beautiful leading pass to Michaud. What a bid! But unfortunately, it was always out of bounds.
Incredible athleticism on display here from both of these teams. Michaud absolutely flew to get to that disc. I think he may have been landing out of bounds even if he'd made the grab, but incredible display there from Michaud.
It's now Boswell. The hatted number 50. To Gosselin. Tries to get to Fairies, but Fairies was marked very closely by McLean. Craggle keeps that swing. Wonderful completion of Fairies' cut after the initial open under didn't come off. He overshoots Tombre Joncas and almost gets it to another receiver down the field. Huge flick break all the way across to Zoo, and he just pops it to Too Good. That was a lightning fast response as Cadota slaps his hands in frustration.
Cadota definitely thought he had more of a play on that one. Mackenzie making a bid on defense there as well, coming in hot on the throw. I like his immediate reaction to looking for the next option. Gets the disc back in his hands and is already looking to the end zone for that first stall count. There was a touch on the throw, but good job by Queens to get it back into the possession of Zoo anyways, and an easy dish to Too Good, who Too Good continued his cut from a much deeper space in his own zone and continued it all the way up into the end zone as that disc went into his hands.
Brilliant work by Queens. Lightning fast response, not willing to let McGill get that break, and they came so close to doing it. But you have to say, unlike in other games, that doesn't feel like it'll be McGill's last chance.
Absolutely not. This game has been going back and forth so far, trading points, a couple breaks apiece, each broken each other once, I believe, and so we'll see if they can get it back to see who one team, I think, can get it another break in a row, can go back and punch in that 2-point lead, start to extend, maybe try to pull away. You do sometimes see the first half of games stay a bit closer. In the second half, one team pulls away with a bit more stamina, but that remains to be seen here with, so far, what is a very even game.
So now, Stone coming down. The dogged defensive form of Cabral there to meet him. Goes back, Eagles to Stone. Stone seems... Oh, and McAleer stumbled as he went for it. A little bit of discussion about whether or not he was tripped.
So it looks like Callier trying to keep the disc in his hands here. Still a little bit of discussion. So it does appear to be an uncontested foul. Shout out to Jack Eagles on the far side signaling the call for all of us at home.
Thank you very much, Jack. Stone goes with his scuba, somehow works out. Yeah, I would throw my hands up as well. Ferries collects it, going to his knees. Back to Stone. Wonder what he's going to throw next. He has McAleer. McAleer even has Eagles as well. Back into McAleer. Throwing towards the camera, laterally across the pitch, is ever so slightly into the wind. Eagles. A beautiful flick all the way through the cavernous hole in the middle of the zone, and they just finish it off with Ferries. Excellent leading pass by Hooley. Comfortable score and a 5-5.
I love the confidence of Hooley to make that shot as well. There was, again, defensive coverage in the area, but Jordan Ferries, once more, going to that end zone and through any kind of pressure. You put a 50-50 disc up with Jordan Ferries in that space, and my bet is he's going to come down with it.
Well, that's certainly not a bet I would like to be on the other side of. Becky, he has been fantastic for them so far, everywhere on the pitch downfield. And that was the exact kind of response McGill needed as well. That was their cleanest offensive possession so far. A flawless hold. And looking very good doing it. I love that throw initially to Hooley as well through the zone. I believe it was Eagles. And some people have a certain flick in the wind where you can see them cock it right before they snap it, and there's going to be a lot of spin. So if that thing isn't pinpoint accurate, it's going to be almost impossible to catch. They went straight to Hooley's chest.
See the same typical offensive line down there for Queens as well. Not changing too much personnel yet. A lot of faith in the set lines here for the Queens team. McGill, on the other hand, transitioning a lot still between lines. You got Jonka and McAleer staying on the line. Boswell back on this defensive unit as well.
As here come Queens. Picking up immediately in the grey hat. That was Spafford to Too Good. Back to Spafford. And Too Good again. They're very good at that little dropping it straight back, and the handler just stays where he is to receive it one more time, and this time be through the cup. Too Good just trying to use his body to block off that side of it. The swing is out wide. Lewis. Back in the middle to Spafford. And back to Too Good. Nice relaxed swinging by Queens. It's not the most pressuring zone right now, but a part of that has to be attributed to Queen's excellent spacing, forcing the cup to really stretch to try and cover the viable options. And there, a little bit of absent-mindedness from Mackenzie as it bobbles. So at 5-5, McGill with a chance for a second break, but somebody has other ideas. James Lewis smashing through and blocking it. Again, perhaps a little lackadaisical.
Have to agree with you there. Mackenzie just looked a bit too casual going for that catch, and he's lucky to have a teammate like James Lewis coming through that space to get the run through D.
Oh, the swing out wide. Juhas. Too Good. Puts on the brakes and goes back. And then Mackenzie. As Spafford found field, decides against it. Michaud cuts from the front to Stack. And there's Spafford making himself available. Excellent timing. This is some classic 2-5 offense being run by now. Lewis tries to send it. Tombray can't get there as Mackenzie makes an emphatic grab for 6-5.
Fantastic play. The matchup that I am so enjoying right now between Tremblay Jonca and Mackenzie, both of them elevating their hands so close together to that disc, and Mackenzie winning this battle comes down with it. That is what Mackenzie is able to bring to this team. I would love to see him cutting more to that deep space. They've got the throws to put it up and around, and clearly able to come down with it under pressure.
So I believe that's a deep shot to Mackenzie and a deep shot to Too Good as well in this game. So the two members who lead their handling core, showing their versatility offensively.
So it has been about 45 minutes, just over 45 minutes in this game actually, and it does look like the teams are going to take a timed half at this point, with Queens leading only by 1 at 6-5.
And remember that it will be McGill coming out on offense when we rejoin the action in 5 minutes. Keep it here at ultimatecanada.tv, the only place for action on a Sunday afternoon. Welcome back. I advise you all to check your watches. Do not adjust your clocks, for it is the judgment hour. The second half here, the final of the 2018 Canadian University Ultimate Championships. McGill 6-5 down, receiving the disc. Both teams have a break each and a handful of opportunities for more. It is difficult to separate. Queens have loaded power lines and have spent the season working on positivity and raising themselves up. McGill have fought tooth and nail to get here and will not relinquish their opportunity for glory without one more fight. As we see Stone, the Texas Ranger, goes for a huge bladey flick as desperation to McAleer. Almost collected by Fairies. You've got to say, it was a lot of contact.
So there was a foul called from McAleer on Too Good here, but there was also a stall down by McLean on Stones, who thought that he had got to 10 before Stones released the disc. So if it does go back, there will also be a second discussion about whether the disc was down or not.
So this is going to be fun. They have to work out each call in order of how they would take superiority.
So the stall down call does take superiority here because it did come first, meaning that even if McAleer, it's an uncontested foul call on McAleer, he does have to send the disc back if it's a contested stall. Of course, the observers here can make the ruling. We'll see what gets determined.
This is why you like to have multiple observers. Two different conversations happening ever so slightly.
For the championship game here, we do have 4 observers on the pitch.
Decked out in green. I like how green and orange are the two colors. 4 observers. And this is a big moment.
Looks like a little bit of confusion between the 2 observers as well. The call apparently was retracted. Some signaling from the observers there, a retracted call, but now to be seen, they still need to discuss the stall count here, and something you kind of wish. Just hear observer Glenn Ford talking there. A retracted call as well. It would appear no calls at all on the play. Glenn Ford over there was talking about a fast count, but he threw it anyways, and with a retracted call, it is still a turn regardless of any of the calls.
So, remarkable spirit on show from everybody, exactly what you'd expect at the top flight of Division 1 in the Open Division of the Canadian Ultimate Championships. For their universities, McLean pivoting. Too good. Ever the leader. Gets it to Cabral. Marked by his opposite number. Huge layout D, and look at the Stones on that play.
Stones absolutely extending on that upline cut. DJ, he was just one step behind his offender and gets fully through the disc.
Coolberry. McAlean takes a knock, takes a bump, and Coolberry puts an awful lot of pop. It's up, it's down, and it's saved.
And it's none other than Stones coming in with the goal as well. McGill lucky to get that one, but to have Stones get the double happiness there, that's got to pump them up as well.
That's one hell of a foundation stone to build a team on. Excellent effort, 100% commitment, and epitomizing the mentality that has allowed McGill to win in a close game against Waterloo in the quarterfinals, to overcome what a lot of people consider to be the more talented Guelph side in the semi-finals, and now to refuse to lie down in front of Queens, a proven championship caliber club. McGill have no respect for the established powers, and I couldn't enjoy it more.
McGill, a team that has been in this top tier for so long, but so often losing in the quarterfinals as well. So this year, going all the way, fighting tooth and nail through 2 hard games, getting to this point, and now we're all tied up at 6s. I've got to say, this 2 teams, to me, look so evenly matched as well. Maybe a little bit of luck on the side of McGill on that last point, able to get a second, I think almost a third attempt that Stones managed to make that grab. So Queens still looking a little bit more disciplined in this scenario, but McGill obviously not going away.
And when you talk about discipline, it's a very good thing to consider. On the opposite side of it, I would have to say McGill have earned their Ds while they've given them to Queens in a lot of instances. There's been a couple of them, but for the most part it seems like McGill's adjustments are easier to make. Even that throw by Coolbury barely worked out as Too Good. Focusing on leading the offense of his side. Gosselin. As R. Kelly would say, I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. That perhaps a measure too much. Too Good. Spreading it out wide. Spafford gets it down and back. And into the middle to Too Good. McKenzie. Relaxed. Almost nonplussed. Michaud. Spafford and back to Michaud. That's some fantastic anti-zone move. As here comes the melt to match defense. Awful lot of time. And what a deep cut. Phenomenal stuff by McKenzie.
Incredible cut by McKenzie, starting that from the handler position, continuing all the way up. He started that cut as soon as the disc started to be swung across the field. So before it even ended up in the hands of Michaud, he had started that cut deep. By the time Michaud gets the disc, he's got a wide open Mike McKenzie, and what a target to be able to put up a Frisbee to.
The timing of that deep cut with the melt call from McGill is what got him so free, and that was exceptional intelligence on the part of McKenzie. Good effort as well, it has to be said, by Tom Griffin, trying to make up that distance, but couldn't quite get there. So 7-6. And for my money, I feel like this is how it's going to be until the end of the game. I don't see much separating them. I do think there'll be a break, perhaps, but it's a very difficult one to predict. I just feel like it's going to stay close, and I think Queens might be able to edge it. They just seem to have the slightest of nose hairs in front right now.
Very much hard to tell. Could be anyone's game here. At only 7-6, yet to see a 2-point lead in this game as well. So be interesting to see if anybody can pull away and create some separation from their opponent.
So here come Queens. Huge pull. And Stone picks it up. McAleer. Down the line. John Cass thinks about the hook, decides against it. Instead, he has both Eagles and Hooley. Sends it to Eagles. Hooley goes deep. Eagles decides against it with a big arcing throw all the way around to Ferries. And Ferries now a nice little pop in front of him. Hooley scrambling and battling and keeping it on despite the intense pressure from Robinson.
Looks like a debated down call here. One player on Queens making the call. There wasn't a lot of reaction from the sideline, and usually when there's a lot of reaction from the sideline, you can get more perspective on whether that was down, but the sideline here didn't react to Hooley's catch at all. So to me, I didn't get quite a good look at it, but to me that says that it may have been up.
It seemed to me like he scooped the disc with one of his underhands as it was coming down, and he kind of just pressed it against his chest to have the necessary control. That means he retains possession once that disc touches the ground. I was going to say dirt, but you forget that this is on turf.
There were some Queens players there on the sideline. Too Good, one of them signaling to his teammate to go to the observer in this situation. There was a lot of contact through the back of Hooley as well. I think grounds for a foul on that play from Robinson too. So interesting to see they've decided to resolve it themselves. So a contested down called and will return to the hands of Jordan Ferries. Again, good discussions and good spirit being displayed from both of these two teams.
Definitely something that the Canadian community can be proud of, how these young men are leading, both in action and ethos, as that disc goes back. McAleer. Staring down an end zone. And a nicely structured stack. Wright has been having himself a little battle with Will Turner. Very engaging to watch. Huge layout bid, but it comes up empty. Tan has to recover as quick as he can.
Another pick called through the stack. The stack getting a little bit congested there. I think as they were clearing, they're not creating as much space as when they initially set up. So need to be aware of that if you're McGill. And
there, that one just bouncing out of the hands So now here come Queens with a chance for a break and maybe able to get that 2-point lead. Robinson thinks about the hook on the flick, waits and sends it to the backhand. It's always ahead. Huge layout bid. Excellent defensive effort to cover the gap by Fairies. Just able to get there in the end. I believe that was Kester Cho who was the intended receiver, as Fairies receives it again in his own end zone. McAleer. He has Joncas. He sends it to him. McLean realizes it a little bit late. Can't get into position. Joncas decides against sending it to right, but he wants Eagles. Right on the end zone line, looking to tie it up. It's going to have to go back. There's some discussion going on. It happened a long time ago.
There was a travel called on the throw from McAleer. And this one, it did continue quite a ways, and there was actually a turnover down at the end. So I'm not sure what the resolution of this will be, at what point the call was recognized versus when it goes back. Because
almost everybody, apart from, I believe, Wright and Eagles, had stopped playing. So they get away with that one to an extent. Even their own teammates had stopped. I can remember Hooley was right there in the middle of the pitch just calling for them. Stop wasting energy might be the call, especially seen as these are the shortened lines both teams have been running out here.
Both of these teams relying, like you said, on their top 10 just about. We're saying the same names over and over again now for both teams, not worrying about their offensive or defensive units anymore, just getting the best bodies to get the job done on the field.
Cabral taps it back in. McAleen swings it. Hooley. Excellent undercut. Still searching. Stone. Here's McAleer to one side of him. Nothing really on the other. Eventually gets it to McAleer. Decides against sending it to Fairies. Starting that deep cut from fairly far back in the stack. There's Eagles on an under. Good use of a nice dump. Swing unavailable. Let's see who attacks the open side next. Hooley sweeps across. There's a pick. Excellent rescue by Eagles, because if that had been a turnover, that would have had to stand.
It's a great heads-up play there by Eagles. He recognized the pick and continued his cut. Have to catch that disc to keep it alive for his team.
Jankas. Stone has Fairies open side and hits him. Hugely athletic play. Screaming across. I believe it was Tan and Robinson. He managed to get around Robinson and a little bit of contact on the bid. Spinning him in the air.
The observer did rule that it was a point, though, so it will stand at 7-7 in this game. Just about under 20 minutes now left on the clock as well, so time not on the side of either of these teams. But McGill doing such a great job of working the disc up the field, and right now working it onto the open side there too. The defensive pressure not quite there on some of those cuts. Jonka finding himself in yards of open space more than once there too. And then of course the athleticism of the likes of Jordan Fairies on display in this final.
You really have to commend the heart of the Queen's defense. No malice. Little bit of contact. Robinson as well, throwing himself trying to get there and stop that play. So now, Toogood and McKenzie back out there looking to lead this team. Zoo and McLean as well joining them. I believe that's Spafford, although there are two number 13s in the exact same hat. As here come McGill. They need the break. There's the offside. Called immediately. So Lewis. I always worry, you know, when you're in that situation, you have to give the disc back, that's when I'm going to make the worst throw. And they're going to go, that guy can't throw it. Excellent. Let's isolate him. So McAleer has to reset. Straight to Too Good from Spafford. Mackenzie. And McGill happy to stay with their zone. Try and keep that pressure on. Mackenzie and Too Good. I like those little backward steps to slow down Mackenzie's momentum. Down the line comfortably. Juhas. Back to Too Good. Still not melting. McGill holding this zone longer than they have earlier on. Although right now completely free in the end zone. Juhas, that's a blown assignment. And an easy score for Queens. Excellent throw.
Looks like a miscommunication there. Jonka was supposed to be covering that deep space. Saw a little bit of frustration there between the McGill teammates, McAllier and Jonka, just figuring out where that miscommunication came. Looks like they will sort it out though, and 8-7, Queens leading with 15 minutes on the clock. So McGill, as they've been doing all day, need a response now.
Certainly, since the opening few exchanges, even in the second half, both offensive looked a lot cleaner. They've really settled into this game. Both looking very confident. So it's going to take some huge defensive efforts to dislodge possession. Right now, Queens have the chance to take the first 2-point lead if they can get the break, and that is crucial. All of a sudden the time matters even more. As long as it's within one, then it's just about the score. But if you're able to get the break and you're Queens, then all of a sudden this game ends. So, you can see Queens just keeping a lot of those stars out there. Swapping in a couple of their defensive specialists, like Cabral coming on for this point. So here they go. Stone. Gives it to McAleer. Lots of space in the open side. Excellent work by Tremblay Joncas. McAleer spreads his arms wide in frustration, but there is an unforced error. Mackenzie and Too Good trying to isolate it, but instead they go with a nice little pop pass to Lewis. Great distraction, brilliant follow-up cut, and there is a crucial moment.
The first 2-point lead of the game, the biggest lead we have had in this championship match. 9-7, Queens manages to get themselves an all-important break with not much time left, and just an execution error there from McGill. Queens being gifted the disc in the red zone, and they're gonna be stoked about that, as you can see the energy of them rushing the field after that goal.
So now McGill have more than just the natural gap of starting the game on defense to surmount if they want to go home with the gold. But it all begins with an offensive hold. You can see Queens, they're locked in, that whole sideline. They smell blood in the water. And they are starting to patrol, knowing that the louder they are, the easier it is for the men on the pitch to play defense. I thought it was so fitting as well, the way it was picked up by Mackenzie, and it was just Too Good in the end zone. It goes, yep, those are the two people you'd want trying to take charge of this. But then they take all the attention away, and it's a nice little pop to Lewis for the score. Really speaks to how Queens have gotten themselves to the position they are. Yes, they have stars, but it is the fact that they are turning to the other players that really builds the strength that puts them in the position they're currently in. There's now another D-line look. Too Good is going to be putting on the mark right at the forefront of it. Albert Craggle, the man on the island. And there the split stack immediately goes, giving a lot of space in the open side for an under, but a huge defensive effort sweeping through there. Lewis is all over the pitch right now. Excellent bid. And Queens look to really twist the screws and put this game to bed. Too Good. Robinson. He has Tan, he has Mackenzie. Both of them covered well. But the man who wasn't is McLean. Catches it and jumps, trying to go for it. He's on the end zone line. It's not quite there yet. McKenzie spinning, juking, jiving, ducking, diving, dodging, not able to get free. Too good. Spreads it around to the opposite side. And these are the critical moments. Excellent effort. You can see Ferry's giving everything he can, but in the end, it's a quick inside break, and Robinson puts what could be a critical nail into McGill's championship coffin.
And we wondered earlier in the game if that 2-point lead was going to ignite some sort of momentum for whoever got there first. Queens in the driver's seat now, 10-7, just over 10 minutes remaining in this game as well. So if McGill can't find a response in the next point or two, I'm thinking we're looking at a returning champ to the podium.
3 in 4 years. The accolade that awaits Queens if they can complete this championship comeback. And that puts you in rarefied air. Certainly in my experience, although admittedly my history, knowledge of the university scene here in Canada, let's not call it resolute anyway, or comprehensive, or comprehensible, or even claim that it exists. So, Queens, very much in the driver's seat. What do you think McGill can do? What do you think has led to this sudden burst from Queens as they extend their lead out?
Well, I think at this point they've just turned up the gas a little bit. They turned up the intensity and they started fighting for the disc a little bit more. McGill had been doing a very good job of working those open side unders, and we talked about it before. They were ending up in yards of space, and just a couple key adjustments from a few key players have led to this difference in Queens. The likes of James Lewis coming through on more than one defensive play in the last 2 points. That run through D on Ferries. They've just tightened the gap on defense, and that is all the difference.
Stone with the disc. Nice under. Jackos immediately sends it deep. Griffin tries, but he can't quite close the gap. Picked a slightly too obtuse angle to make interaction with the disc, and it hits the ground in front of him. So now Queens really looking to pull away over the horizon. McLean walks to the front of the end zone. Tremblay, Joncas. They're on the mark. This is good initial defense. Excellent stuff by McGill. They force the high stall backhand. An excellent effort downfield by Will Turner. No, he doesn't get the disc, but because he makes contact, they have to start down here rather than getting start right up that end zone corner. Stone, beautiful backhand, sweeping it around to Lee. And nice scooper by Lee. I said it too soon. He throws it over right. Perhaps a little bit too eager. And there is the timeout. I like that decision by McLean.
It's a veteran call there in this situation with only 8 minutes remaining. They're up 3 points. McGill still with the potential to nail in a couple key points and bring it back within one before the horn goes. Queens recognizing that they can really secure the victory with this point. So a great call there, and just looking so amped up and just so fluid on the pitch right now too.
So now we watch the two lines currently on the pitch come together, and their teams staying near them. You can feel the enthusiasm coming out of Queens, trying to raise their brethren, just like they're trying to raise that trophy at the end of today. So here we go. Let's see what McGill are able to do. How composed Queens feel after that. McLean, flanked by Cabral. Standard 2-5. You've got to expect a set play. And it's Cabral immediately trying to get free. They just look for a dump reset. They know that all they have to do is take their time. They're not in a rush. They're in the lead. And if they can exhibit that through their play, they should be fine. Take care of business and you will take home the trophy. McLean Pops it back into the middle to Ian McLean. And there's James McLean coming back to collect it. And spreads it wide. This is nice, relaxed play by Queens, not forcing anything. It's Will Turner. Turner. McLean clears out. Beautiful inside break by Turner. Somehow escapes Lee, who is just throwing himself around the place. Unable to stop the break. And there's McLean down the line to Turner. I should clarify that was Ian McLean. And there, a bit of a miscue. Not the execution he was looking for. A critical mistake, perhaps. We'll see how McGill respond. Jackals. Gets it across. Craggle, nobody really near him, as very gradually Cabral makes his way towards him. And Craggle, just about able to get the one to Tremblay. Joncas, he pirouettes, he jumps in, he launches one deep. But it's just too far ahead of Hess Childs, who gives everything of himself and maybe leaves a little bit in the ground for good measure.
And despite the way that this game is currently going towards in the favor of Queens with very little time remaining, you've got to say McGill has left everything on the field today. They have put out so many incredible displays of athleticism and effort for every single disc. This time, Queens a little bit more disciplined and turning on the Jets at the right moment. Few minutes remaining here, but Queens currently in control.
So Ian McLean gets it to Turner, and Turner launches a deep shot to Stone, seemingly. Takes his time about collecting it. Brooks was doing what he could to make up the distance, but it was too far. Right. Stone starting to get a little bit frustrated with his teammates. He wants that disc back straight away. Now it's spread out to Griffin. Beautifully down the line. Hess Childs with an excellently timed cut. And there comes Wright. But it was always going up. And it just bounces out of his hands.
Here, Mike McKenzie on the sideline yelling at his team to chill as well. This point, a definite moment for them, definitive moment of this game.
McLean to Cabral. Cabral sends it into the middle of the pitch. Good, gets it down the line to Brooks. Gets it back. That's great. Brooks, middle of the pitch. And bear in mind that this is a fresher line. And there's the stall out. Ran out of options. Ian McLean could not get free from in time. Got to wonder exactly what Craggle was waiting for. And Griffin, beautifully down the line to Wright. He has Lee and Hess Childs in front of him. Floats it out for Hess Childs, who collects it comfortably for the score, reducing the gap to 2. But McGill need a break, and they need one soon.
McGill have got to get a break in the next 3 minutes. If they can get a point before the horn goes, they're still in this conversation. We've talked about this before. We haven't seen a team actually succeed in doing it yet. It would be great to see it in the championship game, of course, but if you're Queens at this point, you just need to keep possession of the disc. And Queens calling a timeout here as well, using their second timeout of the half, recognizing likely that there isn't any time left on the clock, and they're going to burn about 70 seconds here to run down the time a little bit.
I think you can gain some insight into the intention behind that particular timeout call based off the intensity of the circle currently gathered on the pitch for Queens. Oozing a kind of casual presence. Robinson, too good. McKenzie have been absolutely fantastic. Lewis playing one of the better games of his college career, leading this side. Zoo as well. Pouquier out there, I believe. Could be Spafford. And there goes the horn. This is something about the hard cap that is a little bit confusing because Queens are now national champions. Huge congratulations to them, but we have to finish the game. So they don't get to celebrate it immediately, but they get to know. And now with an offensive hold. And I'm not going to lie, if this was me or some of the teams I've played on, we would definitely try and we would not take this point seriously. We would try and score it some kind of ridiculous way. Huge congratulations to Queens, 3rd title in 4 years. As McGill. All that's left to fight for them is pride.
See if Queens puts an exclamation mark on this final game.
Mackenzie goes deep immediately, taking Gosselin with him. Lewis tries to get it back to Mackenzie. Underneath it, the team captain leading his squad back to the promised land, and the Golden Horde screams onto the pitch. Congratulations to Queens. Once again, you find yourself as the ruling elite. Commiserations to McGill.
The University of Queens, absolutely deserving champions here, doing such a great job and just absolutely extending the last few minutes of the game. They really pulled into their own form. They created this game for themselves and they took control, all tied up 7-7, and then Queens turns on the Jets with 20 minutes left and all the way to the final game. So right now, McGill, obviously 2nd place. The bronze medal game locked in Universe Point right there between Guelph and Manitoba, and you can see Manitoba just turning the point over. Guelph in possession. Connor Armstrong with that D. We're just going to give you a little bit of bonus coverage of the Universe Point in the bronze medal game over there.
So let's see what they're able to do. Armstrong gets it to Keenan. Spreads that out wide. It's a little bit difficult to make out what's going on over there. I believe that that's Aiden Hayter. Back to Armstrong. Spreading it. Nice little sit-up. And they're just taking their time. They want to go home with some kind of silverware. Who wouldn't? Armstrong again. A nice little shoulder shimmy fake. Able to get free, bounces that one. Lots of contention underneath it. And absolutely stolen away by Ryan McDonald. Getting huge, and he's already a lengthy being. McDonald gets it back. Thinks about a huck and sends it. He didn't think about it for that long. Maybe he should have thought about it a bit longer. Bronze medal on the line. Armstrong gets the block.
That crew couldn't quite get to that one. A little bit of fun extra coverage for you. The bronze medal game. Credit still. We've got Queens and McGill in our mind, looking for who is going to join them in that 3rd place on the podium.
Armstrong, a man who walks with purpose. Just about able to get that one swept up off the ground. Back to Armstrong. Huge bid, but isn't successful. Keenan's able to get it and corral the disc. Guelph still looking. Back to Armstrong. Keenan goes deep. There's the shot to him. It's going to be a battle for the medal. Huge layout bid. Oh, what a rescue! And he looks like he was in. They give it to him. Huge layout effort. Immediate response. That's how you win a medal.
Incredible job. Patrick Keenan on the 2nd effort. A layout D. Layout for the score and a bronze medal to the University of Guelph. So we have our podium. Queens, the champions, a 3rd time in 4 years. McGill, a silver medal, and the University of Guelph taking the bronze in an emphatic way. It's been an amazing afternoon. We're going to be back with more action. We've got the women's championship game at 4:35 p.m. So please stay close and come back then.